2027 World Cup draw just happened, and depending on who you ask, it's either the worst administrative decision in rugby history, or just another day at the office. Critics are calling it broken. Commentators are saying the system needs a complete overhaul. England supporters are quietly celebrating while New Zealand and South Africa are staring down the barrel of a quarter-final meeting that has everyone talking. But here's what nobody expected. While the entire sport argues about fairness and seeding and whether World Rugby has any idea what it's doing, one man is sitting back with a smile on his face. Rassie Erasmus, the South African coach who should be the angriest person in the room, has come out and said he can't complain about it, not won't complain, can't complain. And that statement alone has done more damage to his critics than any angry press conference ever could. Because when everyone around you is losing their minds and you're the only person staying calm, you're either completely deluded, or you know something they don't. So which one is it? Is Rassie playing mind games with the entire rugby world, or does South Africa genuinely not care who they face and when they face them? The answer to that question might just reveal why the Springboks have been so dominant and why everyone else is scrambling to keep up. Think about the optics for a second. You've got rugby analysts breaking down why this draw is terrible. You've got former players talking about how the system is fundamentally broken. You've got supporters from multiple nations pointing out the obvious imbalance. And then you've got Rassie, who by all accounts should be furious, saying he can't moan about facing New Zealand in the knockout rounds because you're gonna face them at some point anyway. That's not just confidence, that's a completely different mentality. And the terrifying part for everyone else, he might actually be right.
Let's establish what everyone else is angry about, because the complaints are legitimate. The draw has created a situation where the top two teams in the world rankings could meet in the quarterfinals instead of the final. That means one of the best teams on the planet goes home earlier than they should. Meanwhile, other sides get what looks like a much easier path through the tournament. England, for example, has been drawn into a pool that many consider significantly less difficult. The contrast is stark. On one side of the draw, you've got brutal matchups from the group stages onward. On the other side, you've got what looks like a clear run to the semi-finals if you can navigate the early rounds. Rugby writers have called it an administrative mess. Matt Williams, the former coach and current analyst, didn't hold back when he labeled it an administrative cock-up, and he's not alone in that assessment. The criticism centers around the seeding system and how rankings are calculated. World Rugby uses rankings from a specific point in time to determine seedings, which means a team's current form or recent results might not accurately reflect where they'll be when the tournament actually kicks off. It's a system that was designed to be fair but ends up creating these lopsided situations where preparation and timing matter more than actual ability. The argument goes like this: if you're going to have a World Cup, the draw should give every elite team a realistic chance to reach the final based on performance, not luck. Instead, what we've got is a situation where geography, timing, and mathematical rankings have conspired to create a tournament structure that looks uneven before a single match has been played. European teams are looking at their path and feeling pretty good about their chances. Southern Hemisphere teams are looking at their path and wondering who they annoyed at World Rugby headquarters. It's created a perception problem that the sport didn't need, especially when rugby is trying to grow its global appeal and convince people that the World Cup is decided by the best team winning, not by who got the kindest draw. So yeah, people have every right to be frustrated, and yet Rassie isn't. That's what makes this whole situation so intriguing.
The Springboks don't build their game plan around hoping for easy matchups or favorable draws. They build it around being ready for war whenever it comes. Rassie's comment about not being able to complain because you'll face New Zealand at some stage anyway isn't dismissive, it's the core of their entire approach. If you're good enough to win a World Cup, you're gonna have to beat the best teams regardless of when you meet them. Whether that happens in the quarters, the semis, or the final doesn't change the fundamental challenge. You still have to win, and if you can't beat them in the quarters, what makes you think you'd beat them in the final? This mentality separates South Africa from a lot of other rugby nations. They don't just prepare to be good, they prepare to be ready for the worst possible scenario, and then execute anyway. It's why they can lose players to injury, face hostile conditions, and still find ways to win matches they probably shouldn't. Rassie has built a system where external factors like draws and seedings are irrelevant, because the team's belief is that they're capable of beating anyone anywhere under any circumstances. That's not arrogance, that's preparation meeting confidence. Now compare that to the way other nations are reacting. There's a lot of discussion about fairness and process and whether the system needs to be changed, all valid points, but none of that changes what's happening in the tournament. The draw is done, the pools are set. Complaining about it now doesn't move you any closer to lifting the trophy. What does move you closer is focusing on the things you can control: your preparation, your game plan, your fitness, your mental state. Rassie understands this better than most, and his refusal to engage with the controversy is a masterclass in controlling the situation without saying much at all. While everyone else argues about the draw, South Africa is just getting ready to show up and do what they always do. That's the difference between complaining about circumstances and preparing to overcome them.
Here's the thing about Rassie's silence that nobody's talking about. It's not just about staying calm or refusing to complain. It's about controlling what happens next. Every other coach who's voiced frustration about the draw has now given their opponents information. They've revealed what worries them. They've shown their hand. When you say the draw is unfair, you're telling everyone that you think certain matchups are harder than others, which means you've already mentally ranked your opponents and decided who you do and don't want to face. That's a strategic error. Rassie hasn't done that. By refusing to engage with the controversy, he's kept everyone guessing about what South Africa actually thinks. Are they confident? Are they concerned but hiding it? Do they have a plan that nobody else has considered? The uncertainty alone is valuable. But there's more to it than just mind games. This approach also protects his players from external pressure. When the coach isn't making excuses or complaining about circumstances, it sets the tone for the entire squad. You can't have players walking into camp thinking they got unlucky with the draw, if the coach has already dismissed that conversation entirely. Instead, you've got a team that shows up focused on what they need to do, not what might happen to them. That's a significant psychological advantage that most people are overlooking. It also flips the pressure onto the teams with easier draws. Think about it: if you're a side that's been given what everyone considers a favorable path to the semi-finals, you're now expected to capitalize on it. Anything less than reaching the final stages is going to be viewed as a failure, because you had the easier route. South Africa doesn't have that problem. If they make it through their side of the draw, they'll have earned every bit of respect. If they don't, well, they face the toughest path possible, so there's no shame in it. Rassie has essentially removed the downside risk, while maximizing the upside reward. And he's done it without saying much of anything at all. So why is this approach genius? Because Rassie has just turned a perceived disadvantage into a psychological weapon. Every team that's celebrating their favorable draw now has to live with the knowledge that if they meet South Africa later in the tournament, they're facing a team that's already been through hell to get there. Every team that's complaining about the draw is essentially admitting they're worried about facing certain opponents at certain times, which means they're already operating from a position of doubt. South Africa isn't doing either. They're not celebrating and they're not complaining. They're just existing in the space of absolute readiness, and that's terrifying for everyone else. Because what do you do with an opponent that doesn't care about circumstances? How do you get into the head of a team that treats a quarter-final against the All Blacks the same way they treat a pool game? You can't, and that's the point. Rassie has removed the mental advantage that a favorable draw usually provides. He's taken a situation that should have South African supporters worried and turned it into a statement of intent. We're not afraid of the draw because we're not afraid of anyone. Prove us wrong. It's also worth considering what this does for team culture. When your coach comes out and refuses to make excuses before the tournament has even started, that sends a message to the players. We don't need favorable conditions to win. We don't need luck. We don't need the perfect draw. We just need to be better than everyone else when it matters. That kind of mentality doesn't develop overnight. It's built through years of preparation, tough matches, and a refusal to accept anything less than excellence, regardless of the situation. Whether you agree with Rassie's approach or think he's downplaying a legitimate concern, one thing is undeniable. While everyone else is still talking about the draw, South Africa is already focused on winning. And in a sport where mental strength often decides World Cups more than physical ability, that might be the smartest move of all. The draw doesn't matter if you're ready for anything. And right now, only one team is acting like they truly believe that.